this series of videos, I would like to share with you the meaning of Bhagavad Gita. I would like to share with you the chapter-wise meaning of Bhagavad Gita, chanting some important slokas. Bhagavad Gita is a very important text in Sanatana Dharma. Bhagavad Gita comes in the Mahabharata, in the central portion of Mahabharata in the Bhisma Parva. Bhagavad Gita has 700 slokas and it is separated chapter-wise and it has 18 chapters. These 18 chapters are divided into 3 sections, 6 chapters each. The first section explains about the karma, the action. It explains the karma marga and it represents the Tvam Pada. The next section, that is the next 6 chapters, explains the devotion, Bhakti Marga, that is the Tat Pada. And the last section, that is the last 6 chapters, explain about the knowledge, Jnana Marga, Aspada. So the entire Bhagavad Gita is the explanation of the Mahavakya Tattvamasi of the Chandogya Upanishad. Mahavakya of the Chandogya Upanishad, and it comes in the Samaveda. The entire Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the Upanishads and all the Vedas. If we go through the 700 verses, we will very well understand many verses, they resemble the Upanishad verses, mainly the Katha Upanishad and Mandukya Upanishad, etc. Bhagavad Gita is the dialogue or conversation between Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the Pandava king Arjuna. Lord Krishna is the avatar of Lord Mahavishnu, and during his avatar in this world, in this earth, he gave this Bhagavad Gita. So the action, devotion and jnana, these 3 are very beautifully blended in these 700 verses. Many people think that action contradicts devotion and devotion contradicts jnana, but it is very beautifully blended in these 700 verses. Bhagavad Gita explains the philosophy and psychology, and that's why even now it is very much used in this world. Many of the slokas are very useful for us in our daily life. It's a complete psychology. It elevates the distressed mind. And all these contradictions are in our mind. If we read Bhagavad Gita continuously, the thoughts of Bhagavad Gita are embedded in our mind and we will come over difficult situations in a much easier way. The backdrop of Bhagavad Gita is, it happens, as I said earlier, it comes in the Mahabharata. Let me explain to you very briefly about the story of Mahabharata. Mahabharata is the story of the war between the 2 brothers, that is the children of the elder brother, that is the Kauravas, and the children of the younger brother Pandavas. It's for the kingdom of Hastinapur. Dhritarashtra, he was the elder son, and because he was physically impaired, the law of that land does not allow him to rule the country, that is to rule the kingdom. So that power automatically went to his younger brother Pandu. And Dhritarashtra has 100 children and the Pandavas are 5 in number. After the death of Pandu, the king Pandu, after the death of the king Pandu, the power should come to the Pandavas, but the power went to the Dhritarashtra. And the children of Dhritarashtra and the visually impaired king, they don't want to give this power back to Pandavas. So it is the dharma for the Pandavas to rule Hastinapur. Since it is Dharma, Lord Krishna was supporting the Pandavas. Any amount of consolation or dialogue didn't work, so they both went to the war in the field Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is always referred to as Dharma Kshetra because in this land, in this earth, only in some places the Dharma will be upheld, and Kurukshetra is one of such places. So they were on the war field. The Kauravas, they are 100 in, their children itself, they are 100 in number. Besides that, they are a very powerful leader, so they have a very strong army. But the Pandavas, they are only 5 in number. And they have the army, but not that strong as the Kauravas, but Lord Krishna was with them. And that's enough. So they went to the war field. At the moment of the commencement of the war, seeing all his cousins, the teachers, the grandparents, everyone on the Kaurava side, on the opposite side, seeing that the Pandava brother, one of the Pandava brothers, Arjuna, he was so dejected in mind. It is for the peace of land we have to fight with our own relatives and friends who took care of us for so long. It's just for the peace of land. So he was so dejected in mind, and Lord Krishna was the charioteer of the Pandava leader Arjuna. So at that time, when Arjuna was very rejected, at the time of the commencement of the war, Lord Krishna gave this advice, and that advice is Bhagavad Gita. It just elevates the mind. Any weak mind, if it's any person with a weak mind, if he studies Bhagavad Gita, that will elevate him in whatever situation it may be. Many people think that it is a Hindu text. Of course, it is the sacred text of the Hindus. But when you read Bhagavad Gita, we will very well understand that it is not only written for the Hindus or the Hinduism. It's written for the humanity. Bhagavan Krishna, he said this advice, he gave this advice for the humanity. Because we all come over difficult situations and weakness of mind in some time or other. And it's the weakness of our mind which draws or which attracts external situations. We have to live with the mind. Whatever a person he may be a very far advanced in status or in wealth or whatever it may be, we have to live with the mind. So when the mind is weak, it creates a lot of troubles. It gives troubles for himself and for the others. So any person with the weak mind and with not with that correct path, if their mind is not channelized in the right path, then they create havoc in all the situations. So Bhagavad Gita is absolutely needed for our daily life. That's the background of Bhagavad Gita. When Lord Krishna said this Bhagavad Gita, that is the 700 verses, he said in a series of verses, series of slokas. Later, when Sage Vedavyasa, when he coded the Bhagavad Gita, he separated it chapter-wise according to that main content or the main theme. So he separated it as 18 chapters. The acharyas who came later, they gave name for each and every chapter like Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, etc. And the acharyas who came after that, they explained it, they wrote the bhashyas for it. And if any acharya, if he wants to establish his philosophy, then he has to write the bhashya for Bhagavad Gita. So that's the importance of Bhagavad Gita in Sanatana Dharma. Actually, when the Mahabharata war It took place for 18 days. When the war took place, the ruler of the Hastinapur, that is the Dhritarashtra, he was a visually challenged person. So he cannot participate in the war. And Vedavyasa gave the power to the king Dhritarashtra to see objects in a long distance place, or to see the war happening in the Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra. It's in a faraway place from the palace of Hastinapur. So he can sit in the palace of Hastinapur and he can watch the war through his divine eyes. He gave first, Vedavyasa gave this power of divine vision to the Hastinapur king Dhritarashtra. But the Hastinapur king Dhritarashtra, he said that I didn't see my children grow with my eyes. Now I don't want this power to see my children die in the war. So he rejected or ignored that power. So next, sage Vedavyasa, he gave this power to the charioteer of the king, Sanjaya. And Sanjaya received that power. So what's the rule is, every day at one time, the Sanjaya has to brief the happenings in the warfield to the king. Or if something important incident happens in the warfield, if some important leaders, if they fall, then Sanjaya has to explain or brief the king about the happenings. So this went on for 10 days. On the 10th day, something remarkable situation happened. Bhishmacharya, who is the leader of the Kaurava army, leader in charge of the Kaurava army, the Senadipati of the Kaurava army, he was targeted by arrows by his very dear grandson Arjuna. So that disturbed the king Dhritarashtra, because Bhishmacharya was such a great leader, a great warrior. If he goes to the war, he will not lose it. That's his power. That's his talent, power, efficiency, everything. And more than that, he has the power to select his time of death. So he will not fall prey to anyone's arrows. That's why he was made the leader of the Kaurava army. So he was surprised, how did it happen? And he asked Sanjaya to explain the whole happenings, even from the first day once again. Actually, the Bhagavad Gita was said to Arjuna before the commencement of the war, that is on the first day in the middle of the war field. But only Arjuna heard the Bhagavad Gita. And even Sanjaya was virtuous enough to hear the words of Lord Krishna directly, other than Arjuna. But he didn't brief about Bhagavad Gita then, but he briefed it on the 10th day of the Mahabharata war, when Bhishmacharya fell on the bed of arrows. Sanjaya said this Bhagavad Gita again to Dhritarashtra. And that's how the Bhagavad Gita was revealed to the world. And this is what some of the acharyas explain about when the Bhagavad Gita was revealed. Actually, it was revealed on the war field on the first day of the war, but only Arjuna heard it, and Sanjaya also heard it, but he said again the Bhagavad Gita to the king Dhritarashtra on the 10th day of the Mahabharata war. And many people think that how is it possible to say the 700 slokas in the middle of the war field? Will the Kauravas, the opposite army, will they have the patience to hear it? Or will the Pandavas have the patience to hear it? In my view, all these are unnecessary questions, because Mahabharata is an itihasa. Itihasa means iti plus her plus us. Iti means like this, her means indeed or definitely, and us means happened. So it happened like this Surely, definitely. And it happened, Mahabharata war took place before 5,000, more than 5,000 years back. And it is history. Itihasa means history. When I say history, it is not a chapter out of the history book of the school history book or the college history book. It is Itihasa. And the author of the Itihasa has the permission or has the freedom to include some stories or include some anecdotes from the different Puranas to enhance the core subject of the Itihasa. So Bhagavad Gita was an Itihasa. It just happened, and Veda Vyasa coded it by his meditation power. And some people say, all these, some acharyas, they say, all these 700 slokas this long, if we chant Bhagavad Gita and if we have a very good knowledge of the Sanskritam, it takes more than 3.5 hours if we chant it in a high speed. If we chant it in a medium speed and we have a very medium power in sound in the Sanskritam language, it takes more than 6 hours. So is it possible to tell these 700 slokas in the battlefield? That's, as I said earlier, is not needed for us because the content of Bhagavad Gita is useful for us. And some acharyas say that this Bhagavad Gita was given to Arjuna through that meditation power, through the transfer of that mental ideas, and as Arjuna grasped it in a second or in a few seconds. There is also a saying like that, but it is recorded in the Mahabharata. And it is the sacred text of the Hindus, and many Hindu homes, they chant Bhagavad Gita regularly. So that's the introduction of Bhagavad Gita. From my next video, I would like to share with you the chapter-wise meaning of Bhagavad Gita. Thank you for watching. Keep watching.